Spa is a classic that evokes so much emotion in racing, whether from a driver, a fan, a broadcaster, or otherwise, and it strikes fear into those that are tasked with starting a brand new season of racing from the midfield. Spa also happens to be our first outing with the Simpit Radical Series as they pick up where they left off with their GTE cars last fall and into the winter. Hi, welcome to Pit Stop TV and Virtual Spa. My name is Andrew Cardinal IV with Justin Prince alongside in the booth, and last fall the Simpit Road Racing Series concluded with Todd Alea on top in GTE machinery, but he's got a little more work cut out for him this time, around at about kind of a throwback car, the Radical SR8. Now, we have the brand new Radical SR10 on the sim, Justin, but this SR8, it's got the old tire model, old physics. It is the older car, old body, old aero. It's just old and it feels like a bit of a throwback, and some say it races better. All that we know is it's going to be an interesting challenge for the 70 some odd drivers signed up for the season.
I think it's going to be an absolute challenge, absolutely, when it comes to the speed, first of all, especially when it comes to this type of racing, to be expected a lot of draft focus, and in turn, when it comes to a track like Spa today, that in turn plays very heavily into this car's characteristics. Of course, Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, with its 4.35 miles, has a lot of potential opportunities to draft off prospective drivers, whether up the Kemmel Straight or whether up through Blanchimont up to the final bus stop. Expect a lot of passes through those two sections today. In particular, if you're brave enough or able to force a mistake close enough out of the bus stop, we may see some drivers in turn see some brave moves up through the source as the race goes on. But the major thing when it comes to this historic racetrack, though, is it's not just about speed, speed, speed. You have to also be strong in Sector 2 today if you really want to be able to take advantage of that drafting part of the track in the first and third sectors today.
Yeah, straightaways are going to be, and I guess exit velocity then on each of these corners is going to be name of the game for these drivers, especially with this older car. They tend to be a little more wishy-washy in the tail and actually have a bit more tire spin than the SR10. So you got to watch for these guys, especially in corner exit, not just lock up getting in, but making sure they maximize their exit velocity and get a good run out of La Source, out of Jackie X down to Pouhon, out of even Pouhon down to Lafayette, out of Stavolo up to Blanchimont. And they've got to make sure they hold on to that car through turn 17 Blanchimont. I think so especially. That could get a little bit interesting, especially on older tires, Justin, and different fuel loads. They could be a little touchy, we'll say, through that 17th corner down to the bus stop. And then again, you got to maximize out of the corner, out of the bus stop, and down to the source. Every straightaway here is going to make the difference in round number 1. And speaking of it being round number 1, let's take a look at the full schedule. 10 races, that's on the one, there we go, 10 races this season. Spa, Zandvoort, Spain, your opening 3 rounds. Bathurst, I think, is kind of an interesting entry here for April 23rd. Okayama and Japan, so 2 Japanese circuits, Okayama and Suzuka right in the middle of the schedule. Then the street circuit at Long Beach. Not much room to race there, May 21st, but we'll see how that goes. Canada for round number 8, then Road America and Brazil to round out the schedule. I'm interested to see that combination of races, especially in the back 4 or so. The street course, the throwback at CTMP, Road America, Elkhart Lake, which has been brought up to current iRacing graphic standards and looks beautiful, and then Interlagos, a bit of a throwback in itself, but nobody, I think, dislikes Interlagos.
Yeah, it's a very classic championship style racetrack because of its history, but also because the way it drives, with the way it challenges competitors in terms of that middle sector in particular. I'm very curious amongst that closing stretch, though. You mentioned Long Beach, for example. That's going to be a big challenge for some competitors, I think, with the championship, as well as you throw Bathurst into the mix of things, because those are 2 very tight circuits in the midst of that stretch where it's very easy to get yourself caught in attrition. In other words, the emphasis, make sure you're in a good spot throughout this championship with the wide diversity of different types of tracks, and in turn different distances when you throw Okayama in the mix of things that you have to deal with throughout the championship.
we'll keep an eye out on this entire series, of course, over the course of the spring and into the summer. Just getting ready for practice to end. I was looking over some times. Terry Crouch, the fastest in the session. Really no surprise to me personally, but we'll see how that changes over the course of the day. It is cool to see Randall White second, Aldous Putiklis in third in practice, and we'll kind of go down the order here in qualifying in a few moments. Sean Cole also chips into the top 10 in our practice session. 25 drivers set to go racing today at Spa. Justin, glad to have you here for the first time on Pit Stop TV. You definitely get around. You talk with a lot of different broadcasts, and certainly have seen your fair share of sim racing. What are you expecting today, especially with weather conditions looking pretty mild? 70.4 degrees in the air, 79 on the track. It's certainly not at all too hot. It looks like a normal afternoon day here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Pretty cold track temperatures, which means expect high speeds. Could be a little bit difficult to warm up the tires per se, so it might take a couple laps for drivers to really get into the optimum time band when it comes to qualifying in particular here. For the most part, should be in a solid position. The major thing though is the in-sim time. It's around 450, which means in theory, depending on how the race start plays in, we might see this track temperature actually drop by around the final part of this race. So there's a chance we see that temperature shuffle a lot, not just qualifying for the race.
We'll monitor that over the course of the afternoon. Cars on track now for their first timed session, if you will. That really puts them in position on the grid. And taking a look here at David Clymer in car 242. Everybody getting out on track. And you can see we've got some new class colors there on the left side. Now in line with the class decals on each of these machines. And we have a beautiful little guide there on the top right of the screen. So you can see all of the red numbers. Those are your amateur drivers. All of the green are the pro drivers. So that'll help, I think, everybody kind of keep track of who's who in the zoo. And here's a look at Terry Crouch, fastest in practice. And I'd expect him to be a pioneer driver, really, in this series. He's, I think, certainly in the Simpit Discord, known as the guy, really, the reason we're running this car this season. But it's a fantastic car, isn't it? It was used, of course, for years and years and years on iRacing, and it was only just recently replaced, I believe, in the last 365 days or so. And it's still standing the test of time.
It is, and I've seen this utilized, this type of car, should say, not just on the road course, but the ovals, just because of how fun the car is to drive in general, and how much, in turn, speed you can carry with some of the grip levels on it. But the major thing I've noticed when it comes to Crouch is he could be difficult to beat today. The reason I say that is, in practice, he did not drop once below the 211 bracket. Every time was in round 211 flat, 211.3, 211.4s. So he's extremely consistent with or without the draft. And a lot of the air drivers in this field, even amongst those at the top of the practice session, did not even match that consistency without the draft that he's got.
So the driver's eye camera with Terry Crouch headed down the Kemmel Straight for the first time in a timed lap. As he opens up his first lap of qualifying, David Clymer, Sean Cole, Pete Snake also opening up their first laps. Ed Santinelli as well, with the recent promotion up to the pro class from amateur last season. A look at the Frito Sport 57 as he follows Dustin Oberlo up the hill in car 88. Oberlo still in that AM category, as you can see the red wing on his car. And we'll see how these guys are able to use the draft maybe on their qualifying laps, potentially trying to link up and make each other go fast. Oberlo leading for now, but Santinelli peeks to the inside. And that's something we've got to talk about with this season, actually. The series as a whole, they have an open qualifying session. A lot of leagues are kind of moving away from that, back to the solo qualifying, but I like this open qualifying format. You can draft. You can try and use other cars to your advantage.
And in turn, it could provide the potential of teamwork being important in the qualifying session. It happens a lot when it comes to tracks like Spa and Turn when you have facilities important to the draft. It's important to mention, though, that you can get held up a little bit in the second sector with that strategy, which can cost some time, but some drivers do feel that benefit or prefer that benefit of working with a fellow competitor, or rather, in some cases, their own teammates, to be able to try and slingshot each other up to the top of the pylon. But it's not a lot of time to do so in just 10 minutes to actually plan that.
As qualifying approaches the halfway point in the session, just a couple of, I guess, session details that will be the same across the entire season. Spa today, obviously, 45 minutes of practice. That's already concluded. 10 minutes of qualifying on track now. We expect 2 pit stops in each of these races this season because we are looking at a 31% fuel limit, which is really going to, I think, open the box as far as strategies. As you saw Terry Crouch go to the top of the board, purple with his first time. Sean Cole second. Phil Scruton in third in the 420 car. 60-minute race, 31% fuel load. That is definitely going to shake things up a little bit and provide us with different strategy options. I'm excited to see who takes tires and who doesn't on which stop, and if we take 2 sets of tires, 1 set of tires, depending on who we've got on track, and kind of how that goes. And we're looking at, I believe, a drive-through penalty limit of 15 incidents. So watch out for that as well. 4 4Xs, and you've got a drive-through potentially, and that's going to shake things up, especially with no fast repairs in this series. And all of this, of course, brought to you by Gomez Sim Industries. A big shout out to them coming on board this season. Time's rolling in. Crouch on top, Puticlis second, Tamira third, and that is exactly what I think a lot of us expected with these. Well, Randall White now second. Again, we're seeing a lot of the usual characters right where they belong in this qualifying session already. Here's a look at Aldous Puticlis in cars 6, 6, 7.
And it's very weird not to see him in the Kinetic Racing colors, I'll say, now in the Kingsman Racing colors this campaign. Long-time sim racer, very regular competitor in the Major Series as well. Usually was a front runner, top 10 before some of the region shuffles in this past year. But I think it's pretty prevalent. The top 3 in this qualifying are from the top 3 in practice. It's pretty clear the top 3 right now on your track are extremely comfortable, and you throw Tamara in there as well. Depending on how Crouch plays that on the opening lap, and depending on what second on back could play out here, this could get pretty advantageous for the leader if you get to where you have 3 very evenly footed qualifiers looking to make the same pass, because you lose so much time on that opening lap on the cone from a side-by-side.
Well, in 2nd through 4th right now, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, Randall White, Aldous Puticlis, and David Tamara are all closer than Terry Crouch is to Randall White. And look at that, the gap gets even larger, 1.3 seconds now between Terry Crouch in 1st and Randall White in 2nd. He has got this field covered up, and he spins out of the source. It looks like that might be the end of his qualifying run. But there is just no contest right now. So we took a look at Tamira now, Randall White on track in his number 84. Terry's walking the dog right now. 1.346 seconds. Then it's only a 2/10 gap between Randall White and Aldous Puticlis. And then about 4 more tenths back to 4th with Tamara. And even James Dowling is pretty close by. Only another 1/10 and a half or so back from the 14 car in his 5th spot. And yeah, I mean, the separation up top is huge. As long as Terry Crouch, I think, survives lap 1, is able to build his gap through, I guess, the meatier sectors of corners, if you will, sector 2, sector 3, where there's not that straight line of the Kemmel Straight. I think he can pull away and absolutely put a gap on this field and potentially have this covered up pretty quick.
And not only that, it's very hard once you pull away to be able to have the pack behind you reel you back in, per se, because it requires the respective competitor up in the lead or broken away to be able to try and, or rather get held up in said traffic. So that's going to be very critical, how that first opening lap of this run goes. Track position critical. Speaking of track position being critical, how about some of your top AM qualifiers? The 420, currently amongst the top AM qualifiers, 14th overall, 3 seconds off the pole, yes, but they are pretty tightly packed within about a second for the AM class.
Yeah, Phil Scruton currently the top confirmed AM qualifier. Now, I say confirmed because Ocean Zoller in car 75 per our spreadsheet was listed as a pro driver, but he's in the sim listed with his nickname as an amateur driver, and he's got the red amateur decals on his car. So we'll wait for confirmation there, but for what we know now, Ocean Zoller should be a pro driver. Phil Scruton then would be your top amateur car in car 420. Dustin Overlow then second in class, and Kenny Stepp now joins up to the top of the board, and he goes much quicker in that Moza Racing number 66, and he has got now about a 0.5 over Phil Scruton, 2 tenths or so back to, it looks like 2.5 tenths actually back to Overlow, and the gap grows as you go further down the list to guys like David Payne, Crystal Theis, Ola Sarnquist, Dan Clark, and Callum McLeod all having a time in the session. Mike Nickham, Brandon Carl, Nicholas Batista, and Christian Clark, by the way, don't have a time down yet, but Christian Clark is on track. However, I think for some reason that time is not going to count as he bins it in the wall there through Blanchimont.
And remember, when it comes to the open qualifying format, drivers do have an opportunity to finish their respective qualifying laps. The interesting thing is, I don't think too many people are going to even have that chance. Drivers like Randall White, though, I'm curious how this holds. He needs to find 0.7 of a second without the draft. I don't know if he can do it to catch up his teammate.
Across the line, the time is, it was looking promising, but it's just a little bit slower there for Randall White. No quicker, he will get no closer than to Terry Crouch on top of the board. Sven Labe just began a new lap. He's headed up to a Rouge now. And over Radion he will go. He will have plenty of time to finish up this lap. 3 minutes added to the qualifying session. Ed Santinelli, it looks like, is just leaving the pit lane, so he will not get another opportunity. He's currently 12th in qualifying. Johnny Alford in car 710, also up to pro class. He comes across the line. Does he go any faster? He does. Picks up around about 5/100ths of a second and actually jumps over Ed Santinelli. How about that for car 710? Kenny Stepp also wraps up his run. Callum McLeod, though, he might have something. He is through Blanchimont this time by. Let's see if he can pick up the half second. It is up to Dan Clark, though, for that 20th position.
Did see him slingshot past who was in front of him previously. We already seen the driver who was in front of him have to pull off. So this is definitely a flyer opportunity. But Cloud, last of those on time so far. Definitely like going to improve here, hopefully.
Oh,
in his
big
case,
jump.
yes.
Up to, I think, 13th? Yeah, 13th spot right behind Johnny Alford. That is huge, and that checks in at just 41/1000ths of a second over Ed Santinelli. And now Sven Labe, I think, is the last driver, and he is the last driver on track with an opportunity to go any faster. He is 9th currently, Justin, behind Pete Snake, and that's about a 2.5, nearly, actually 2 2/3 second, or 10th gap. There we go.
The worry to me is his best times in the 2:13s in practice. The thing is, if he's able to meet his personal best, if not top it, he might get another couple spots up here, which can be still advantageous to be able to gain a little bit more distance and be able to gain yourself a little bit better track position. You can already just see how difficult it is to time it up just right to the bus stop without sliding those back tires. Couldn't get to the rumble strips on the outside.
Across the line, he goes faster by about a 10th, but that is not enough to move him up into the 8th position ahead of Pete Snake. So Sven Labe will stay in position number 9 in our qualifying session this afternoon. Once again, thanks for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. Glad to have you all joining us for the action from Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And this place definitely, I mean, it oozes history out of every single corner. Even now, gaining some names in recent years. Now Jack Yick's corner instead of No Name. It's always the same, it feels like, over the last 10 years or so, but it's always still changing. New names for certain corners, and it evolves with motorsports. And recently, we don't have the update yet on the sim, but catching a bit of a repave, Justin, trying to, I guess, optimize it a little better for modern GP racing. Some more sand traps here, fewer sand traps there, moving walls around. This place is always evolving, but also feels like such a throwback, and it feels like it's stuck in the early 20th century.
Yeah, especially when you consider that at one time this used to be essentially like a street circuit, to where majority of the corners that were back in that iteration, of course, no longer in that part of the facility where it used to be a whopping 15 plus miles at least, I believe. But when it comes to this racetrack as a whole, the history that comes into play on it from the virtual world as well as in the real world, it's a very significant racetrack in that you remember a lot of its history. Even thinking on the sim side, for example, thinking to some of the Spa endurance races here in the past, where you have some of the greatest names like Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, for example, from a few years ago competing for Redline, or some of the other virtual teams in the recent years, Coanda with the Uprise, the McLaren a couple years ago. It's such an intriguing racetrack that brings the best of the best in sim racing as well as the real world.
And today it's bringing you the best in Simpit Radical Series competition. 25 cars ready to go. They're all gridding up down below on the starting grid, somewhere between Staffelo and Blanchimont. And there you can see them all ready to go racing today. 1 hour. The race distance, let's meet your starting grid. On pole, Terry Crouch in car 59. Randall White picks up where he left off, up in the front of this field as always, and he is starting from second position. Starting from the third position, how about Aldous Puchklis in car 667, a detour, I guess, from his usual 666. David Tamira will start from fourth. Starting from fifth, it's James Dowling, also in the pro category, with Andrus Slizens we're going with in car 99. Also, he doesn't have that pro marker, I guess, on his name, but he is in the pro class. David Clymer will start from 6th today in car 242, and Pete Snake from 8th position. To round out your top 10, all-pro driver top 10, by the way, Sven Labe and Sean Cole.
Behind them, the 75 of Volchenzol starts alongside Johnny Alford. And behind them, we've seen the run picked up from Kellen McLeod. It was enough to pick up the 13th position, one of the top M times overall, in fact, starting alongside Senicelli. Then it's Kenneth Stepp alongside Phil Scrudden in the top 16th. Then it's Dustin Oberloh in 17th. Ola Sorquist in 18th. David Payne, and as well as Schweithas rounding out your top 20.
The 114 in 21st position, rather, is Dan Clark, Mike Nickham from 22nd position today. And to round out your field, you've got Brandon Carl, Christian Clark, and Nicholas Batiste. So the back four drivers not taking a time in our qualifying session, as we have got all 25 cars ready to go. Weather conditions as we roll into our race session, they've come down a little bit. So as you alluded to, Justin, working into kind of the evening hour here at Spa. I don't think we're going to get anywhere close to sunset, but it is cooling off just ever so slightly as we prepare for the first green flag of the season. And out of the bus stop, there you go. Green flag is out. We are racing.
Nice clean start up to the first straightaway. No major issues. Now it's going to be the interesting part. How do drivers play things up? Coming up at Radion up to the Kemmel Straight.
To a Rouge for the first time, Ratty on top of the hill, and its teammates out front. Terry Crouch, Randall White, Aldous Puchklis, David Tamara, Andrus Slizens, your top 5 as we head up the hill. Love these shots, Ratty, and there we go. Your first accident of the season. Sean Cole involved, James Dowling the other. Everybody slowing to miss it, but car 39 undoubtedly a part of this one. Unfortunately, the rest of the field, they continue to look home, and for the first time today, we are into another sector, and Johnny Alford, he's got problems.
Yeah, that involving that stack up when we talked about this before the broadcast. You're projecting as high as El Rouge possibly for the trouble. It comes out of Radion, and that's the trouble spot. Because you're going so quick in that section, it's so easy to end up going around and stacking yourself up when everyone else is around you.
Everybody works on out of the Jackie X corner down to Puan. And here come the race leaders. Terry Crouch still out in charge in the 59 car. There he goes across the screen. Randall White follows. Then Aldous Puchklis, David Tamara, Andrus Slizens. He has got some company, it looks like. Actually, rather, he is hounding Tamara down to Lafanya. There we go. Lafanya for the first time. Oberlo and S-Step, they switch positions. Everybody trying to find their footing here on lap number 1. Let's go on board with position number 5. Slizens working on Tamara.
You see Slizens just a bit offline as a result of some of that aggressiveness into the previous corner there, but he does have that draft advantage. I think that will be seen more so towards the end of the straightaway, possibly, if he's able to time this up just right.
Sven Labe, Callum McLeod, a couple of teammates behind these guys. Call it a 4-car battle from 4th back through the 7th position. Actually, that's Pete Snake and Sven Labe, rather. McLeod a little further back in the 8th position. Terry Crouch leads lap number 1. He's got his teammate just behind, but we can't take our eyes for too long away from that battle for 4th position. 4th through 7th as, Kenny Stepp has got problems. Lap 1, and the 66 joins the list of drivers with growing issues, and he pounds the wall there trying to get turned back around.
That's not good for a Step, to say the very least. Overheard on the radio. Got an issue on the brakes. And here's the thing, when you hit the grass, it's like ice when it comes to sim racing on this platform. Guess what? You hit the grass.
Let's take a look at what happened here at the top of Radion. Sean Cole involved, along with James Dowling. And these two, man, they battled so much last season in the GTE cars. Dowling a little further forward, so it looks like it's going to start with his number 34, a brand new highlighter yellow Pennzoil livery on that car. Watch what happens to Dowling over the hill here at Radion just steps out, gets loose, and he wasn't alone. There was one more car that got loose with him. It might have been Alford as, well, Dowling wadded it up, got caught by one car, and actually Sean Cole is auxiliary to this. I think he had his own issue.
Yeah, taking a look there, yeah. Fortunate for whoever hit them at the top of the hill, but you're right on the different issue when it comes to Cole. You had 3 different drivers in one section go around. And keep in mind, when you hit too much of the curbing, especially on the left side like we've seen, with all of those circumstances there, it weight shifts the car and it causes you to kick out. You see it just start to kick out.
I think that was cold tires for Sean Cole more than anything else. And I believe the 710 of Johnny Alford, yeah, that seems to be the other car that was involved. He hit the wall there, came across the racetrack right on the Camel Straight. Thankfully, nobody hit him after that, but his day is severely hindered. And, well, lap 1's antics, they always catch somebody out. Today they catch 3 or 4 drivers out as lap 2 is going to come around and close here in just a few moments, but it is a 1.3 second gap between first and second, between Crouch and White. Oldest Puticlus, though, he is somewhat, well, no, he's 2 seconds back of Randall White. I was going to say he's in the draft range, but no, definitely not.
Yeah, he's definitely broken the draft. Going to be strong for Crouch. Not a surprise team with the personal best already. But I will say this for everyone in the fourth on back grouping, going to be critical to be able to keep up there or hope you don't miss the corner nearly like that.
Tamara still leading this gaggle of cars, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Tamara, Slizen, Snake, and Lamb as they head up Eau Rouge and Radion. This is lap number 3 now of an expected 28, and that lap count may vary. It's a predicted lap count based on these drivers' pace, and of course with the 2 pit stops that we expect, this may become a 27-lap race, but it could stay that 28. Could even be a 29-lap race. We'll find out later in the day. Here's a line of cars, though. 10th place on down through, it looks like 15th. 6 cars or so in this line, trailing Dustin Overlow. Phil Scrutton just ahead of these guys as well, but Overlow leading this gap in that white and green Inca machine, and there's the move to the inside of Sanginelli from car 13. Ola Sarnquist takes the 12th spot away, and oh, that was real close. Sarnquist, an amateur driver, Sanginelli, a new pro driver. Overlow and Scrutton ahead of these guys, though, are both amateur drivers trying to catch up to Colin McLeod in the 8th position, also an amateur driver. So a lot going on between these 2 classes.
Problem is, for some of those AM drivers, they are as good as 6 seconds back in this respective pack. So they're going to need to be up on the wheel from the get-go and be able to not have to fight. We'll say this, David Clymer, you've seen back there, he went from 7th to 15th in the span of a couple of laps. Going to be a recovery drive day now for the 242.
On board with him now, he just passed Sancinelli through Pouan. And into Lafanya, he's got his work cut out for him. 1 second behind Sarnquist. That would be for 12th position. David Payne up the road from there. So the path is open for him to get back into the top 10 because even ahead of David Payne and Dustin Overlow only by about 1.5 seconds. There is that path at least to, like I said, to break the top page of the standings, but it's going to take a lot of work, and he's got 53 minutes to do it. He's got plenty of time. He's just got to be on his best game.
Yeah, you mentioned the cold tire situation. Beck was amongst those in that situation to deal with. But I will say this in this regard when it comes to him as well. Very well-rounded. See him a lot more so on the oval side, I will say, for the Philadelphia-based driver, or hometown driver, I should say. But when it comes to him, consistency-wise, he can keep it clean, and that's one of his main staples over the years. Keep it clean, don't damage the car.
While talking about those guys a little further back in the field, worth mentioning Slizen's just missed LaSource and opened up the door for a couple of cars to go by. Sven Lave and Pete Snake, teammates, going on through past the Kingsman Racing number 99 car. The battles, they continue, and they will continue all day long. Here's David Clymer on Ola Sarnquist up over Radion, and he's going to have a big opportunity here to the right side of the Camel Straight.
Just a perfect corner exit to build up the run. Helps that the drivers behind him a bit of damage to deal with. So at this point, just pick them off one by one, especially knowing that Payne's got damage as well that's dealing with the back end. And here's the thing. In the case of some of the drivers today, if you see that damage underneath that rear wing on that back bumper and back end of the car, it really slows you down and affects your car.
Speaking of damage, take a look at the damage here on Santinelli's machine. You can see it from this onboard. That right rear corner of the car, Justin, it is all kinds of crinkled up. I don't know if he hit a car, hit the fence, or what, but you can also see the wing. The top of the wing there is completely bent in, and that is a big issue. It doesn't look like as big of an issue maybe from the TV cameras, but you can really even see from the TV cameras that wing is very much not how it should be, not in its original shape, and that can affect your downforce. In a car like this, that is especially concerning.
Yeah, and you can already notice he's struggling a little bit. Keep in mind that's with the situation with Alfred on the opening lap. And even with these right-hand corners, have to slow it down a little bit more. You're already seeing a little bit unstable too in the corner exit. That's exactly not. Oh!
Trouble! Out of Stavlo, the 56 and 75, Mike Nickham, and, well, the 75 is Ocean Zoller. And, well, I guess we don't have to worry about what class he's in as far as in top of the order. He, unfortunately, is well out of running for the win. Now as Sven Laib crashes. This is out of the bus stop. Maybe it doesn't crash, but spins it around and now gets righted and will rejoin the field in 8th position. A couple of replays to go back and look at here on lap number 4.
Well then, what can you say? Especially when it comes to the first one. I will say this, the run through Stavlon, you're not usually expecting side by side, but here's the thing. The reason that it really opened up was because of what happened on the rumble strip there with Nickham, where he just opened up the whole right side of the track, and you'll see it once it comes a couple quarters down the line. Once you open up that lane, it's kind of very tempting to say, let's go up the inside. Problem is, the door slammed on him.
Yeah, it's hard to say that Ocean Zoller did anything wrong there. He was taking an opportunity to try and pass a competitor. Unfortunately, maybe not the best opportunity. Maybe he could have just used that misstep from Nickham to set up for the run to Blanchemont make the pass before the bus stop. As you see Sven Laib spin out of the bus stop, just cut and dry, buzzed the rears, went around for a spin, got back going.
And that was one of the major areas I noticed in final practice drivers were struggling in. A lot of drivers looping it in the very slow speed sections, getting up onto the gas, with especially some of the colder tires, even a few laps in on the tires. It's very easy to loop it. Very easy running, though, if you're the leader.
3.4 seconds, and the gap continues to grow from Terry Crouch back to Randall White. Even between Randall White and Oldest Puticlus, the gap is growing, 2.5 seconds. So that draft race that you sometimes see at a place like Spa, it's not happening today. These guys are nice and spread out and running their own races, but that's a good thing to see. I know everybody likes to see cars bunched together. We've seen that over the years in NASCAR. But what I like to see, especially on this sim, especially with a throwback car like this, is drivers having to race not only the car, but also the track. And in this case, you see Pete Snake. He's got some damage on the left side. He clearly has been racing the track a little bit, maybe a little more than he maybe should have been. But we're seeing this battle between driver, track, and car, however, whatever order you want to put it in, and that's kind of classic racing. We're going to see these guys spread out and in these little pods of battles over the course of the day, and on top of that, we get to throw in that pit strategy.
Exactly, and the thing that comes up a lot with the track, this track rather, is even with the draft reputation, eventually it does break into this sort of pattern that we're seeing right here. It does usually take 11 minutes, but I mean, when it comes to this facility, because of how difficult it can be with that middle sector in particular, that's where you start to really see it break apart even with the draft effect. So you have to be able to be consistent in both types of moments, just like we're seeing, for example, from McLeod.
McLeod, your amateur leader, making a move here on Sven Laib. He nosed ahead for a moment, but not able to take advantage of that. He's got to be careful, I think, of how many opportunities he takes when maybe it's not reasonable to do so, because he just brought Phil Scruton right into draft range within a second of the 69 car. So you got to be careful. The 69 and 420, they cannot, well, at least in McLeod's position, you cannot just give up time like that because you want to take an opportunity on the outside of Lacombe. You've got 2 corners to the right, 1 corner to the left. So while you might be in advantage for the apex of turn 6, you're at a disadvantage for 5 and 7. So it's just not, the math doesn't quite work out there for McLeod. I think you got to wait until Bruxelles or Jackie X.
I mean, I get the move at the same time, though, because it's one of your prime opportunities, and there is the damage that we talked about when it comes to the 42. The main reason you try and make a move like that is to try and build a buffer between you and your respective class members. The thing is, as you said...
Oh, he's going around!
That's not going to work.
It's not going to work at all. Thankfully, locks it down, gets that car woed down in time to rejoin the pavement here without too much issue. There goes by a pro and now an amateur driver. So from leading an amateur to third and maybe fourth as Sarnquist closes in. Let's see where the 13 puts his car. Sarnquist still with a run out of Blanchimont. Is he going to make a move into the bus stop? I think he's too far back. But he might think about it to the inside. No, he will sit back and wait. So as he drops down through the gears from 6th to 2nd real quick, it was 1st to 3rd real quick for Callum McLeod, and that is a big issue for car 69. Put car 420 now in front, Phil Scrutton, by 4 seconds to even David Clymer. Call it 5 seconds to his next competition in class.
You've heard the term pressurizing a mistake. It's almost like McLeod just pressurized his own mistake there. He didn't really need to push the issue, and guess what? Now the issue is he's lost a chance at the AM lead by 4, 5, 6 seconds, all because he tried to keep up with the draft a little bit of a damaged car he was probably going to keep up with anyway.
Yeah, I think if he had stayed with Sven Labe at least through the top half of the racetrack, he could have followed and continued to stay outside of that draft range to Phil Scrutton. And if he had used that draft even on Sven Labe, maybe to make a run to the bus stop, he could have still been over a second ahead, still had that gap where Phil Scrutton couldn't have drafted up. And if anything, Callum would have opened up more time, and then he could have passed Sven later at a better opportunity. So, and now he's got to deal with these buzzed tires all race, or at least not all race long, but until he makes a pit stop and changes them. So when we're looking at these guys having to go at least another 5 minutes to make the pit strategy work, he's got a ways to go. At least 2 more laps, it looks like, maybe 3, on this set of tires that are now much more worn out, much hotter, and much greasier, and are not going to last him near as long, at least in a competitive range. So a lot just compounded in a very bad way for the 69 car, and I think that's a learning moment for him, hopefully for the season. Clearly, he's got the speed, Justin. He could be one of our top amateur competitors. He's just got to, I think, rein himself in, especially in the opening 15 minutes of a 1-hour race.
I think you can say that to a few people we've seen incidents with today. You know, we lost it again. And I think that's starting to become a trend corner here, Andrew, because Stan Blanc has nearly spun out 3 competitors, or has spun out at least 3.
Oh, no problem. Pete Snake, he is around in the bus stop. I'd say Stoffel is definitely the problem corner right now, but the bus stop's still very tricky as the 5th place driver goes around and now becomes the 6th place driver. Question is, he was racing with Slisons. Do we think there was maybe some contact?
I mean, I believe they touched before. Let's take a look at the replay to be sure. But here's the thing, too, when you're thinking keep up, it's very easy to just send it too deep, and he sent it too deep. He wasn't even to the inside part of the curbing. Too strong, and it just whipped around.
So problems there for Pete Snake. He goes around and loses the 5th position. Now we've got some pit stops opening up for the first time today. Ed Sanchinelli, the first to come down the pit lane in a scheduled manner. We've seen several drivers in the pits. I think about 6 of them. Sean Cole, you've got Ocean Zoller, he's come down. Kenny Stepp, Mike Nickham, Johnny Alford, James Dowling have all been or are currently in the pit lane. Sean Cole and Kenny Stepp recently rejoined in the field, and Sanchinelli, of course, no fast repair. He's got to deal with that right rear damage the rest of the day unless he wants to wait on it in the pit lane, and he will exit the pits. Got to be careful with this Grand Prix pit entry or an exit. And he leaves. 21 seconds in the box. We'll have to watch that number.
Yeah, I think the number there's going to be critical to think about for the rest of the race, for the rest of the field here. And the major thing to mention when it comes to damages, it's going to be more than just a few seconds. You're talking about full wing change. Give shout-outs out to Sean Cole, though. 2 laps down. As long as he doesn't have any more issues, might be able to pick off those fully who have more issues. He's already passed by everybody else who's crushed so far.
And Kenny Stepp is working on that as well. He's 1 lap behind Ocean Zoller, so at least 1 more position ahead for the 66 car. And as attrition sets in, an hour race is certainly no easy task for anybody, especially in a car like the Radical, especially at a place like Spa. So as attrition sets in and more cars drop like flies, those drivers trying to just get through this race and make their days a little better. As we have this battle on track, Dustin Oberlo and Ola Sarnquist McLeod has passed the 88 of Oberlo again for the second position in amateur class, and now Oberlo trying to hang on to third.
Been very solid, staying in a respective grouping here. Just been trying to keep it clean and consistent here. But Sarnquist, remember, has been amongst those who've been looking to try and pounce a bit, look and try and draft and pass on by the second it opens up. So two different philosophies here in this group.
Sarnquist was always a threat in his BMW last season in GTE racing. Now with the Radical, we'll see how things change for the number 13. Hopefully, he's able to keep some pressure here on Oberlo for the 11th position. Everybody just trying to continue on. Kenny Stepp, by the way, passes Oxenzoller for the 21st position. As we just kind of wait and see, and there's these kinds of moments often in racing, as Nicholas Batista is in the pit lane, where you just got to kind of wait and see. Our job as commentators, right, we've got to try and fill these gaps, try and talk about what everything is happening on the racetrack. But there are some moments, Justin, where you simply have to watch, wait, and just see what happens next. In this case, we see Batista pit. I think we'll see some more in the next couple of laps. We'll see our first true pit cycle of the season.
And you said it yourself, it's a patience game right now, right? And most of these drivers are just trying to get towards the spot where they can push it the furthest they can on the tank. Because the reason I mention it like that is, and the reason I'm wondering what the 57 strat bit here is going to be, when it comes to this, you don't want to end up having to be in the pit stop for a long time or have to come down for an extra pit stop. If you can reduce your ladder pit stop time, even if you feel comfortable to do so, that's an optimum plus. Keep in mind, it's about 6.6 gallons in the tank today, which may not sound like a lot, and is not a lot in theory, but the fuel burn is pretty solid. As here we go, windows open for Kingsman.
Oldest Pudiclis down the pit lane. Here comes Tamara as well in the 14 car. Slizens will stay on the racetrack, but there you can see Tamara headed down the pits. And he will follow Oldest Pudiclis here on lap 9, becoming lap number 10. And there's the triple, he's saying the 666, the 667. He's taking at least front tires. And this is the other big part of this, is how quickly can they dump fuel in the car and how much of an effect do tires have on it. Front tires about 10 seconds, rear tires going on the car now. This is going to take a while actually for Pudiclis, but I'm not surprised that he's opting for tires. It's going to be about 22 seconds and 2/100ths of a second. Tamara in the pit lane. Looking like no tires, 18 seconds.
That's very telling, that difference right there. It tells a bit of the difference with Sancinelli's fuel strat there. So it looks like it's more around the 18-19 second bracket for the gas, 22-23 seconds for the tires normally, as long as you go towards the end of the tank here. So a lot of these drivers going to pick up some time. Looks like McLeod with tires nearly spun it.
That was a little dangerous right there as he exits right in front of Schultheis, and Oberlo was able to jump back in front of McLeod through the pit lane. David Payne also in the pits. He exits, and he will exit in 15th position. Here's Sancinelli, who is already pitted. He will be 16th after this cycle. There's Christian Clark in 17th, Dan Clark in 18th, and that about sums up that lap of pitting, but we've got so many more headed to us this next time around. Terry Crouch should be the first one to enter this lap on lap 10, coming to lap 11. So Pudiclis jumps over, or I guess stays ahead of Tamara. That is still now a 7.3 second gap. Quite large there. Pete Snake still ahead of Sven Labe. Phil Scruton kind of slots in where he should. We'll wait for the rest of this to sort out as here comes Terry Crouch on the pit lane.
Oh, and he nearly put it in the wall, sending it too deep in the pit entry. But it's been a very strong race and a strong run for Crouch in turn. It's been very difficult to even come close to him on time.
Randall White in as well, but let's go to Terry Crouch's onboard for this set of pits. The driver's eye cam. Now, we don't see any virtual pit crew surrounding the vehicle, but let's see if the nose jumps up, and it does. And I'd imagine if we see the nose jump up for tires, we're going to see the rear as well. I don't think anybody's going to take just front tires, but it could be a possibility later in the race, maybe on the second stop, maybe later in the season, as Crouch does go up for all 4 tires on this car. And he will exit a 21.1 second stop. Randall White, no tires.
And White, it looks like, had an issue getting out of the box for a moment there. I don't think that worked out how Randall thought it might to catch up his teammate. But when you have Zilzan's being very quiet, halfway through this run, also amongst the tires. The main thing to remember with this car, the back tires burn a lot of tire wear, and that's why I think some of these drivers are already changing them.
David Clymer in the pits, taking tires as well, and he's one of the final drivers to come in and do so. Here's Ola Sarnquist, and we will await his pit exit. Brandon Carl also coming in there in the number 77. Sarnquist, when does he leave? He was in a lot of battles earlier in the day, and I think will be again. 20.83 seconds, that's among the quicker stops of the day. And it seems like, Justin, the advantage, at least today, is only about a second to not taking tires. If I feel confident in bringing my tires up to temp, I'm taking tires every time this season.
I wouldn't be surprised absolutely to see it at this point because of the time differential. So at this mark, a lot to consider. Of note, Sector 42 did have a 25-second stop, and some of the battles have started to group themselves up and solidify themselves up as a result, such as this one.
Sven Labe, David Clymer right on top of one another. They pass a lap car, it looks like. And that may have been Kenny Stepp, as actually most of our lappers are back on, or I guess most of our crash drivers from earlier are back on the racetrack. A Stepp has rejoined us. Auction Zoller is back on the track. Johnny Alford, James Dowling also back on track now as we approach the halfway mark. Here's a look at Sven Labe. Now, I wonder if this might have been a bit of damage control, literally, for Sven. I didn't think he really hit the wall and got much damage throughout the course of that first stint, but he was in for 25 seconds, as you mentioned. I'm not sure what else that could have been.
Yeah, I find that a little intriguing because it wasn't, at least on the visual front, may have been something underneath he might have seen.
You know what it could have been? He might have been late to clicking tires.
That's a possibility too, especially with the pit cycle. And a major thing to think about too is the auto fuel system in some of the cars that's popped up a lot on the iRacing side. That might also play a factor too. So there is a lot that you have to think about to make sure you do your pit stop sequence right. You don't make a mistake.
I'm glad you mentioned that auto fuel system. I've been on the sim since 2016, and the idea of an auto fuel to get you the right amount of fuel you need for the race, that, I don't know if I'm just an iBoomer in this case, I'm not really sure, but that is a crazy thought to me, and I completely forgot about it. So you're right, I've been seeing issues on social media, drivers, I guess, just learning little tendencies, tips and tricks about it here and there, some getting caught in the pit lane. That's absolutely a possibility, as it could have held him up a little bit with that auto fuel technology now, if you will. I'll be honest, I'm a little late to my homework. I haven't used it yet myself. I don't race as much these days, so frankly, I don't know those little tendencies, tips, and tricks yet, but we're going to learn them, I think, over the course of this season as, deep into Losaurus was Ola Sarnquist. That opens the door now for McLeod, and we've got 3 or 4 cars in a row. In fact, Scruton in 9th, all the way down through Sarnquist now in 13th, all amateur drivers.
I'm curious on the comeback trail from McLeod in particular. Still needs to pick up about 6 seconds. It had been down to as low as 5 seconds prior to the pit stop cycle. I think McLeod just needs to get in a spot where it doesn't get into a back-and-forth battle. And here's the problem. Sarnquist is someone who likes back and forth. At the very least, he's got the draft.
Yeah, I don't think these guys are out of this battling just yet. You got Schultheis and Sarnquist, 2 of your top BMW drivers from last season. They were always around one another. They always battled with each other. They're so equal in speed, with McLeod now sandwiched in between. These guys will be racing, I think, for the next 33 minutes and probably some extra, as that last lap extends us a little bit beyond 1 hour of racing. So, I think these 3 are pretty much entrothhed in this battle, unless one of them has a mistake, or potentially all 3 of them end up wadded up at some point in the Armco barrier. I will knock on wood for their case. Hopefully that's not the end result. How about Dan Clark and Christian Clark, by the way? A couple of amateur drivers deeper in the field. 15th and 16th on the racetrack. Clark leading this little battle. Pretty close together.
Yeah, the Space Machine. Slowly but surely crawling forward. And I noticed this based on earlier, they did not qualify the best of their ability when it comes to Cloud. Because he had been running in the top 15 in practice, then puts up the slowest time in the qualifying, didn't get the draft he was looking for. Now he's kind of proven that he's still got the speed in it. Once he's got the draft, he's very comfortable when he's in the draft. It's more so, I think, as well, the consistency marks. That have been the major part, and it takes a few laps to be able to gain that. He's got that good spot right now.
A light lift there through Blanchimont. Dan Clark setting up maybe for the inside of the bus stop, and he will sit back. No opportunity, or I guess no move made, and he now sets up for the exit of the bus stop. I like that move, and he takes it. That was beautiful. Textbook stuff there from Dan Clark to get by Christian Clark, and he makes the pass. But Clark now to the inside. Can he get back to the inside? Yeah, no, he will sit back. So that was textbook stuff from the 114. It's rare you see a pass set up that beautifully on iRacing these days.
Now, it's not an easy move to set up, but it's also one where, say it itself, pressurized mistake, and Sean Cole looks like a scheduled stop.
Yeah, scheduled stop for him, obviously about 5 minutes off from the rest of the field after his stay in the pit lane. 20th position, but he's got 2 laps to Kenny stop. About a lap and a half now, I guess, while he's in the pit lane. So he's got time to work with. All he has to do is keep this car on the racetrack moving forward. And, you know, in golf, there's a saying, forward progress. Just keep making forward progress here is all Sean Cole needs to do. He just needs to finish this race and take as many points as he possibly can. Today, it'll likely go down as one of his drops, but that's okay. You still want to make your drops as good as you can in case you have to drop a different round for a lower result. So definitely damage control for Sean Cole.
I'll say this when it comes to drop weeks, though. You don't want to rely upon it either. You don't want to be in a spot where you say, okay, I'm just going to use this as my drop the first week of the season, no problem. And then you realize once you're involved in similar issues, or you have to even miss a race, let's say, how do I make this up now? I'm way behind in the points. In other words, you don't want to have to be involved in a wreck in your first race, to be quite frank.
Here's a move. Schultheis on Ovalo for 10th. Great points there, Justin. These guys, they just want to, I guess, bring us the action. Schultheis on through for the... actually, no, that wasn't on Ovalo. I'm sorry. That was on a lapped car. That, I think, was on Kenny's step. That definitely caught me off guard. But Schultheis, I guess, just tried to keep going then as they run down Ovalo from the 11th position. They're about 1.7 seconds back. And, oh, man, McLeod, he really shoved it in there looking for a spot. Now gets him on exit.
Apologies over the radio actually from the double weight machine because, well, that was a deep send, yes, but it was also a bad corner mark from the double weight machine. So McLeod at this point, he's slowly chipping away at Strudden's gap. The problem is going to be trying to make sure no one else passes him back here with the draft because that has been prevalent from some of the drivers in the field today.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for McLeod to make up 5 more seconds dealing with the draft from guys like Schultheis. Right here on the Kemmel Straight, just such a run. Schultheis now back over to the left side, bringing Sarnquist and Payne. And it's going to be dead even up to Lacombe this time. Lap number 14, by the way, right at halfway.
Good defense there. Hard to the right side and through Lacombe to be able to hold on heading up to Malmedy. I think if you're McLeod, though, the focal point has to be find a way to get to Ovalo's draft and run away from everybody else. Still a couple seconds up. By the way, you still have a pro driver back here, too, who wants to also leapfrog him.
Yeah, David Payne will enter this fight at his earliest convenience, as that was a missed corner there from Schultheis. He's starting to battle the car more and more. And, well, I said it earlier, Schultheis and Sarnquist, they always find each other in these Simpit Road Racing Series races. Well, they found each other again, 12th and 13th on the racetrack, and with Schultheis' latest mistakes, they grow closer and closer, right ahead of David Payne, Christian Clark, Dan Clark. These guys could be a whole line of cars very, very soon, especially Sarnquist and Schultheis. Again, they're always around each other in some regard. They always find each other. Here they are, battling for 12th.
And the thing I've noticed, too, on the time pylon is when it comes to some of them, they've been struggling in terms of tempo. It's been up to a second in some of the drivers' cases slower than drivers like McLeod in the M-Class. Which makes it extremely difficult to be able to focus things up here and be able to try and hit your marks proper. I think McLeod might be able to close on up amongst this train and break fully away.
You see that white and green, number 88 of Ovalo, the black number 69, and everybody else is kind of slotting in through as Christian Clark, Dan Clark, they battle into bus stop. Clark, sends it around past the 72 for that position, loops it, collects the 72, and they're both slowing down. I'm not sure if Clark maybe thinks it was his fault and is trying to give the position back.
I don't think he realizes Clark's got a black flag in the sim from that side spin either. Now he does.
All while David Clymer and Sven Labe switch positions on the Kemmel Straight. Clymer climbing the field up to 7th, and Labe falling one more position down to the 8th spot. Let's go back and actually look at what just happened with Dan Clark and Christian Clark. Again, it really looked to me like Clark tried to give the position back thinking he was at fault. But let's check the replay.
Now you see Clark was initially up in front here, and I think this is a simple decision. Try and make the pass through Blanchimont. Get the run coming out of the corner. Clark opens up the bottom lane. Clark takes it. The problem is, Clark sends it in so deep that when he reached the curbing, he's actually started a weight shift and spin around into the slow gear and off of Clark. And this is the part that confused me here. I don't know if Clark thinks that or not, but I don't think he realizes Clark has to come in the pits regardless because he's got a black flag.
Very confusing. He also, I don't think he lost fire in the car. I don't think it shut off. Very, very confusing there for Christian Clark. He gave up a lot of time. Like I said, my best guess is that maybe he thought he was somehow at fault for that. I know these guys, they're gentlemen racers towards the back of the field. Christian Clark especially, they're all just here to have a good time and race. They're not that worried about each position over one or the other. So if they make a mistake, they want to give that time back usually. I think that's what that was. I could be wrong, but I think that's what that was. Just a gentlemanly gesture from Christian Clark to Dan Clark. But yeah, as you said, Dan had to pit regardless as we rejoin this battle for 7th. Clymer, having taken that position away, he has just slowly worked through this field. Started 7th, as low as 18th though, and I think you caught this from the start of the show. He dropped way deep in the field and has just slowly been climbing his way back through, pun intended.
It's kind of what I've seen through him over the years. I've raced him a ton on iRacing on the stock car side in particular, which is for Ray. Clark's not having a fun time meanwhile.
No, he's not. Spins around out of Stoffolo, loses down to the 19th position now. But, yeah, David Clymer putting on a real good show as far as how you make a comeback.
Exactly. And I've seen him do this time and time again where he rarely ever gets himself involved in major incidents or gets damage. And I think that's been very important to do today because so many drivers have the damage. It's made it so easy to pick up drivers one by one.
Speaking of drivers picking up other positions one by one, Andrus Slizens. I'm not sure what led to this, but David Tamira, who I believe, I don't think either one of these drivers took tires. I could be mistaken. Actually, I think Andrus might have. But I know Tamira did not, and Tamira just lost that position straight up very easily to the 99 car. I think the tires are starting to show. I'm trying to recall back to the pit stop. I simply can't recall, Justin, if the 99 did or did not take tires. I think he did.
Based on the time, and remember about 20 seconds.
Yeah, the time suggests he didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing right now, and can confirm they did take tires just a little bit quicker on the stop. Wondering if it was a bit with the fuel calculation to make sure there wasn't too much time per se in there taken out to get out the jacks. But either way, it's worked out well for the 99. Still top 5 of the run. Still holding up tomorrow, who is amongst those on the old tires. Looking really solid. In fact, the top 4 all drivers, well, top 3 of 4 outside of White have taken tires.
And Randall White actually is, I think, losing more and more time as these laps go on. Now down to nearly 10 seconds behind Terry Crouch as they approach a lapped car. Yeah, I think definitely the way to go is tires this season, especially at certain tracks like Spa. I don't think there's going to be a track on the schedule, actually. We can talk about this. I don't think there's a track on the schedule where you aren't going to want tires. We're going to bring this schedule up and maybe, well, actually, hang on. Phil Scrutton problems. He's around to the bus stop, and he has suddenly got a lot of rear-end damage to his Simu Cube number 420 as he will rejoin the racetrack. And he drops out of the lead.
That is huge with the M class. I think his car's broken too.
Yeah.
Yeah, his steering's completely bent up there.
Wow.
And I think it was another situation with the bus stop, yes. But I don't know if it was from... I think he might have lost it, and problem is, Macau...
Yeah, we're about to see a...
damage. Let's look.
We're about to see a whole big incident here. Now, he had been caught by Oberlo. He must have had an issue earlier that mounted in all of this. Here's Oberlo on the back end of Phil Scrutton. Scrutton wide, spins. McLeod plows. I'm mixing words. Plows into him. And, yeah, up in the air. That is huge. Santinelli now down to the pit lane, one of the first to do so. That is big for Phil Scrutton, and he is effectively out of this race.
Yeah, he's already jumped out of the car there. What can you say there? Because that was the gap being trimmed down, as we talked about, a significant amount.
You can see all the way back to Lafayette campus, he had been caught already by Oberlo, and that was a large gap, 5 seconds or so. So he had to have made a mistake or had just, I guess, in sequence, lost a lot of time very quickly. I think he had to have made a huge mistake, and suddenly Oberlo was on him, and it all just completely unravels for the 420. There was a block there into Blanchimont. I think that was okay, but then completely tosses the race out the window here.
Yeah, and I think he tries to save it here, too. That's the thing. He went a little too deep. Locks it up, wanting to save it. Problem is, Cloud's already in the middle of the racetrack. I don't think he realized that's how close everybody else in the field in his class had gotten. And now he's out of the race with damage repair for now.
It's like the onboard with McLeod. One more replay of this incident in the bus stop. And we're going to see a big hit here for the 420 and 69. And right there, almost completely underneath that car. That is a big, big issue. And everybody just tried to slide in behind. Sarnquist lost some time out of it. Schultheis gained some time out of it. Just everybody trying to make the most of what just happened to the bus stop. That is huge for this amateur class. And what that does is now puts Oberlo in control of this amateur class. But he is not at all out of it. Schultheis on his bumper as they exit La Source here with 20 minutes to go. We've got a proper fight for this amateur race win.
Yeah, especially now with the damage from McLeod to deal with the rest of the way, too. It's wide open. Oberlo's done very well. And I think the bigger accomplishments of that double weight, despite the damage, is now going for the lead in class.
Here comes Schultheis on the right side of the racetrack, making a move on Dustin Oberlo as they head down to Lacombe. And for the time being, Schultheis has the nose ahead into the right-hander, and he's got it. Through Lacombe, now down to Malmedy. A little wide, though, as Schultheis losing some time. Here comes the move from Oberlo, nearly 3 wide as the 69 tries to find a way to go. And here comes McLeod and Sarnquist. Oberlo back in control. McLeod dives into Bruxelles.
Everybody forcing mistakes right now in the braking zones. Jackie X could be a tough one. Twice again, nearly loops it around.
An expected 10 laps to go for these drivers, as we close in finally inside of 20 minutes to go. Oberlo over Schultheis, over McLeod, over Sarnquist. And Sarnquist even has David Payne not far back in that pro driver, and it looks like maybe we could have a 5-car battle on our hands very, very soon. I was going to go over the schedule again. I guess we're going to have to wait because these guys will not slow down. Meanwhile...
Yeah, all this while the pit window's open, mind you. And keep in mind, it's critical that you get to this 9-lap to go point because it's been about 9-10 laps the average on the stints today. So this could become a spot where if you can't make it 9 laps on the tank yourself, you're going to be tight on gas the rest of the way.
And importantly, no tires for Aldous Puticlus here. We're seeing pro drivers try to shave off that 1 second. I don't know. I think they did a pretty good job of getting their tires up to temp. I'm kind of surprised by that, especially with the losses we saw from David Tamara, who did not take tires. Pete Snake, Sven Laban, not taking tires, either one.
I think they just feel like this is a better call for the end of the race, at least to pick up more time, per se, deal with not having to deal with the cold tires. I'm very curious, though. Yes, the M-Class drivers are starting to take tires here.
Yeah, Schultheis up on the jacks in the nose and waiting on the rear to come up. But I'd imagine... Wow, no rear tires. That's that interesting opportunity I mentioned earlier. That adds no time to the pit stop, but it's only grip in the front. That's going to be an interesting balance as he heads back out on the racetrack. Let's actually follow along on board with him, and this could be intriguing, to say the least.
I think it's going to be more curious once they get to the slow speed sections again, like the bus stop or the source again. I wonder if he was just looking at the numbers of the tire and said, you know what, it doesn't look bad. I'm not going to take the rears. I've seen people do that before, and it could work if he can make it hold on to the racetrack.
On board with Schultheis as he enters Lacombe Malmedy, and this is going to be, I think, the biggest trouble spot he has, because after these first few corners, those fronts should be relatively up to temp. He's got some work to do on them, but these are the first real testy corners, and the balance between the two sets looks like it's fine. So again, we're learning a whole lot very quickly about the way this season's going to go. The SR8 no longer used in official racing on iRacing. The SR10 has superseded it, but I'm going to be honest with you, this car is giving us one of the most compelling stories we've seen in a long time on Pit Stop TV on a road course. Andrew Slison's down to the pit lane. David Tamaro joins him.
It looks like at least the 99 had to search for the pit stall a little bit there. Tamora had done a solid job throughout this run, though I will say. Been very confident all race long, it looks like, amongst that top 5.
No tires for Putuklis' teammate, and no tires for Tamara. This is... wow. 1 hour on a set of tires for the round. I just don't think what he gains here is worth it, personally. Obviously, I say this a lot. We give our opinions. That's our job as commentators. And there's a reason we have the mic and they have the steering wheel, Justin. But I'm going to be honest. I'm a little bit puzzled.
I think it's more so just the heat in the tires, per se.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, there's only 7 or 8 more laps to go. Not a surprise to see McLeod, though, on the jacks, at least, after some of the slides, but more so because the front nose. Taking 4 as there goes. No tires. I believe the 88.
Yeah, no tires for Obelo. Front tires for McLeod. Here comes Schultheis, and he's going to beat McLeod up. No, that was somebody else. Yeah, that was David Payne in the 73. Wins out that race over McLeod out of the pit lane. Well, everybody going a different way, it seems. 3 or 4 cars left to pit in this cycle, those being your 2 leaders, Terry Crouch and Randall White, along with, it looks like, Oa Sarnquist, and here comes Crouch, almost on cue. Oa Sarnquist also due in this lap, along with Brandon Carl, as here comes the 59 car, your race leader. He's dominated, he's led every single lap of the day.
And that setup is absolutely looked up for Crouch, but also just the confidence levels for them. Long-time sim racer, 10+ years on the platform for TLDR SimSport, a team, mind you, that started just a couple years ago. And the major thing is, Crouch's focus is simple as a team manager for that group, just run endurance races. He's ran 1 official race this year. That's it.
Yeah, definitely that kind of managing aspect. He does a lot behind the scenes here for the Simpit Road Series, and that, I think, is evidence, certainly. It's a lot of league racing. Lone Star GT3 series that we've covered in the past. One of his, I guess, main groups that he runs with on Monday evenings, so runs a lot of GT3 racing. Ran, of course, the GTE cars last season. Dominated there when he ran. Just had a lot of bad luck. This season, though, things turning around as he's got Randall White added to that organization. But a longer stop for Randall in the box than Terry Crouch by about 1.5 seconds. So that gap has grown, and quite simply, at the top of the field, there is little to talk about as far as battles, but here comes Sarnquist, and this is going to mix everything up again in the midfield.
And I think, depending on the pit delta here, it could provide the conversation you're talking about here. Tires or no tires? Looking like they're taking the same call we just seen from previous. Obelo, who took the no tires, is still leading that respective class. It's going to be close.
There goes one car by in the pits. I think that might have been James Dowling finally rejoining us. And there goes the number 13 back onto the racetrack, Olar Sarnquist, as Dowling is, in fact, in for service. David Payne is going to exit, or I guess rejoin right behind Sarnquist as Schultheis goes on by. So right about where he should have been as teammates battle down the Kemmel Straight. Side by side are Snake and Labe. Snake on the inside takes that spot away.
I mean, why not? Just don't hit your teammate. That's the major focal point and the major rule and all that. When you're having as big of a buffer as they have for your class, why not fight it out? See who's best.
Absolutely. You wondered about the situation from McLeod after the pit lane. Well, he's right behind David Payne, a pro driver, so you got to weigh your options if you're Callum, I think, here. Do you want to fight with somebody that's not technically in your class? You are racing him. And actually, no, the interesting thing here, and I've got to balance this between leagues I cover personally, the interesting balance here is they earn points separately. So this pass really means nothing for Callum McLeod and David Payne. So I think Payne actually recognized that and let McLeod go on by. There is no loss or gain for either driver in doing that, but what that does is Payne is half a minute or so behind his nearest car ahead of him in class. That allows McLeod to go on through and try to make up the next 4 seconds up to Ola Sarnquist to get back in this fight. He had a longer pit stop by about 2 seconds versus Sarnquist. So this is important for the 69 car to get back in this race, I think. And he could make up those 4 seconds. It's going to be tough, but he could do it.
We've seen him do it before. The problem's going to be all the scrapes in the front, and how is that car going to be handling now? He does have the tire advantage right now, but the issue to me is going to be just having time to get there. And I don't know if there's going to be enough time per se, unless he's able to find some drafting help per se yet again. It doesn't help the double 8 and 13 in front of him on the pylon have the drafting help. Payne right now is just essentially saying, go ahead, pull me ahead. He's not going to go for the swap or anything like that, knowing that he's trying to gain positions here and just trying to work with him, knowing he's not going to gain more spots in the points.
And that's smart heads-up racing, right? David Payne, I think, recognizes that there's just no reason for him to fight tooth and nail. If anything, let him do his own thing, and if Callum makes a mistake like he does there in La Source, maybe Payne gets that spot back. But again, there's no gain or loss to doing so. So as these teammates continue to, I guess, battle a little bit, Sven Labe stays behind Pete Snake. There's no reason for Payne to fight with McLeod, whether McLeod makes a mistake or not. I think just maybe try and leapfrog and help him, if anything, help a competitor. Maybe you get that same kind of respect back later in the season. Otherwise, there's no gain or loss. Each class, they race on the track together, but they earn points separately, as here goes Payne on the outside under Lacombe. And again, it could be this leapfrog situation, or maybe McLeod is able to pick up a little bit, but that lap, he actually lost a second and a half.
I don't think he's going to be able to close up fully here. That's the problem. That's my concern again with the front end, and I think Payne's picked up on that issue with clean air.
And Callum may have some internal damage as well, with how hard he hit. I know the engine's at the rear of these cars, but that doesn't always mean the most when it comes to simulating damage. If he hit hard enough, he very well could have damaged the power unit in that car and could be down significantly. And of course, these cars are designed to go through the air a specific way. As soon as you mess with any of that, whether it's nose damage, side damage, wing damage, any part of it, diffuser damage especially, any part of it disrupts the way the air goes around the race car, over the race car, under the race car, around the race car. If that is disrupted, you're going to be slower. It's designed to travel a certain way through the air. It's been disrupted in this case. It's not that bad, but it's still slowing him down at least a little bit. I think that, combined with potential internal damage, McLeod just is not the same that he used to be.
Not only with that, when you're involved in the incident, definitely throws you off. Here's the thing, though. We mentioned the draft effect for the two people working together. Guess who's almost there? Schultheis as well as Sarnquist both have linked up. As we mentioned, they are nearly 1 second back now of Ovolo. And if they close at the 1 second, it's game on.
On board here with Schultheis as he closes in. Gulosaurus, it jumped up to 1.4 seconds, but on quarter exit, down into the 9/10 range, and he's going to be able to sniff that draft, especially if he's able to keep it flat-footed and hold a nice, pretty line through Eau Rouge and Radion. He could really pick something up here as Sarnquist just had a big mistake.
I was about to say, Sarnquist in the backdrop spun it out. So there goes the drafting help. Here's the thing, Schultheis has caught the back end of Obolo's tail end of the draft.
Oh yeah, we've got a fight now. This is for the 9th position, and more notably, the amateur win right here on your screen. Dustin Obolo, Chris Schultheis. Looks like 5.5 laps to go.
He's got time to be able to think about this. Remember, he does have that rear diffuser damage that's slowing him down a little bit here. Obolo has had the advantage per se of being on his own. But now here's the thing. Schultheis has the way to be able to try and draft forward. It's about setting up the right move. You don't want to take it too early and then have to regroup yourself a few laps later because you might not have that chance again to regroup.
A recap of Obolo's race on screen. Started 17th, currently 9th. He does not want to give this up. He's going to do everything he can in these next few laps, 5.5 or so, call it 5, and maybe a third. This is going to be an interesting race. Maybe a little bit of tooth and nail. Schultheis, I think, in a very similar position, started 20th, up 10 spots to 10th. and this is as high as he's been all day long. He's looking to add one spot to that. So Justin, we've got a really solid battle on our hands. If the overall leaders have to be separated by 15 seconds, I'll certainly take the amateur leaders being separated by less than 1. And Sven Lave down the pit lane. Maybe a penalty. Maybe under fuel.
It is a penalty. It is a black flag in sim, so this is the drive-through.
Too many incidents there for Sven Lave, it looks like, and he will come in and serve that. Still ahead of Dustin Overlow, but he could play an interesting role if they are able to catch him. I don't think they will. Looks like still a 7-second gap between Lave and Overlow. There's Overlow up out of La Source. That should be no issue, but this is where Schultheis really seems to gain on Overlow. Maybe a little less fuel in the car, maybe a little lighter down the straightaway, picks up more time.
Whenever we thought about how would it work out with 2 front tires, they seem to be helping that little extra bit at least to be able to make him stick to the track. But this is going to be the critical part. Not only picking up the time here, but maintaining it in these next set of corners here, especially in that run through Pool onto Les Fanges.
Picks up a lot of time down the Kemmel Straight, each and every lap. Nearly down to a half second through Malmedy, though. Up on the curbing, looks good. Bruxelles, Jackie Hicks next. Let's see what he can do. Schultheis, as you mentioned, with those front tires, I'd forgotten about that, so that's a good call out. And with Overlow on no tires, based on his pit time, it'll be interesting. Oh, and that's a complete missed corner for Chris. That is way wide.
Exactly what I just talked about. You do not want to make a mistake in this section.
A complete missed corner there at the apex of the Jackie Hicks corner, and that is a big, big problem for the 008. By the way, David Payne and Callum McLeod, they are still very close, separated by about a half second in 11th and 12th overall. At this point, I think McLeod is best suited to just ride in behind and take this amateur podium, at least in class. He'll be, it looks like, 12th on the racetrack. Might be able to fight for 11th, but that won't make any difference, as that was a wild corner for Chris Schultheis. He was hanging it out right there.
Starting to notice some more drivers, though, might be getting close on the fuel. We mentioned one penalty before. Not because Clark's now destroyed again, but David Clymer just had to pit for a 3rd time.
Cutting it maybe a little bit too close, and I think we're going to see these drivers kind of learn where the mark is, and especially if he had been counting on the 2 stops slowing this race down to a 27-lap race, it looks like we're going for 28. So if that was part of it, and the pace from Terry Crouch keeps us a 28-lap race, David Clymer made a small error, has come back in for fuel. He is now behind Sven Lame, who just served that penalty, and that is a huge slap in the face as a driver to have to pit because of a lack of fuel, and now you're ending up behind somebody who was not only already behind you, but behind you even further because of penalty. That is a huge, huge slap in the ego.
And the major concern, I think, for that point now is, if you're amongst the drivers who have made it to 10 laps at least one time, can you go the full distance? Do you have enough gas in the tank? Obolo did make it to 10 laps prior to this final stint, so he might be safe. The question mark is going to be when it comes to Schultheis. It could be marginally close for a few more of these drivers.
And how much are our leaders saving as well? For the overall field, the pro field, how much are they saving to make sure they can make it to the end of this race? Of course, those pro guys, they all want to slim down as much fuel as they can. They want to take as little in the pit stop as possible, even if they're separated by 15 seconds, like they are. How much are they saving? How much is Randall White saving? How much is he mindful of this situation? Oldest Pudiclis, he should be mindful. He should be aware, especially with his teammate in Andrew Slicens. They are fantastic. They've been fantastic all race long. But how much have they saved? How much do they have in the tank, literally and figuratively?
Looking at Crouch and White's totals, they made it 10 laps each of their stints before their pit stops. Pudiclis made it about 9 laps per stint, but has been very consistent on that mark. So I think if you're amongst the top 3, you're safe. If you're even Silzans right now, Sleezans, I should say, you should be safe, made it 10 laps. Tomorrow, I think we'll be safe. It's past that mark's going to be the intriguing part, because I've noticed it's not necessarily massive fuel conservation, it's just how they're driving the track naturally has also allowed them to save that extra little bit of fuel compared to those who are push like Clymer.
Yeah, back on board with Climber. He's not out of this as far as, well, there goes Sven Labe. Out of the source. I was just going to say he's not out of this as far as picking up this 7th position, and, well, does so right away. Almost on cue. Makes that spot back up and is right back to where he started. So, all in all, given the race Climber has had, the extra pit stop, I think he's going to count this as a bit of a win. A bit of a relief that he's able to at least recover to where he qualified and started this race. You take him where you can get him. You take the small victories as you can in racing.
Like I said, it could have went the other direction where his race may have been done on lap 1. Instead, you do a solid job, but keep in mind, some of these battles really picking up to close it out here. McLeod still trying to find a way to work with Payne. Oh, this is while the AM leaders, too, you see, are also battling. McLeod's starting to get impatient.
I'm intrigued by that. As Santinelli heads down the pit lane again. This is pit stop number 3 for him. And that is a big problem for the Frito Sport Pro driver now. His pro debut not going well in car 57 as he is in for fuel, and it's a very short stop, 9.4 seconds. Once again, a fuel error.
I don't know. Here's the thing. He's got an instant black flag, too. And he didn't clear it. So he's going to have to come down again because you can't take service. Oh, something's happened to Overlow on the track.
Out wide out of Pouan. That gives up the race lead to Schultheis in amateur class. Let's go back and see what happened to the number 88. He had been so good all race long, poised, not letting the pressure get to him until 2.5 laps to go inside of 1 minute. Actually, this may be the white flag. We are at 1 minute timer, 45 seconds. Here's the replay for Oberlo. ATVO may be behind on us on the lap counter as Oberlo just gets loose, and in Pouan sends it around, hangs on to it, no damage. But let's check in with the flagman here. And we are waving the white flag. Terry Crouch is headed, let's see, I think he's in Lafayette. Yes, he is. So this is the white flag. Never mind what ATVO says. We are on the final lap here, and everything is coming to a head. Climber and Labe, they're still 7/10 apart, battling through the source now as they take 1 lap to go. David Payne and Callum McLeod, they're taking the 1 lap to go mark now.
Yeah, and you see there's confirmation for Barney, too, to be able to give that. What a run for Crouch, to say the very least.
So there you see. White flag is out, presented by Whiplash Sim Cams. This did shorten up to a 27-lap race. Terry Crouch out of Blanchmont for the final time. It's been a dominant afternoon, and he reasserts himself as the best in the Simpit Radical Series. The first race for the Radical Series this season, and Terry Crouch goes to victory lane. No surprise there. Congratulations to car 59. 17 seconds over his teammate Randall White. And David Payne, Callum McLeod, they battled down the Kimmel Straight. Let's not forget, the race lead in amateur went to Schultheis. No fancy battle there now as Oberlo lost 2.5 seconds or more. But this is your amateur leader.
Yeah, definitely not how you expected things to play out, or anybody I think may have expected things to play out for AM. But Schultheis, despite some of the issues, able to take advantage. All this while, you still have McLeod trying to battle with a pro driver.
And this battle, I think, rather compelling for 7th and 8th. Climber is climbed back to... I love that punt. I'm going to keep making that all season, I think. Climber up to 7th over Labe. Overcoming that extra pit stop as Labe tries to overcome that penalty. Each trying to fight for just a little bit more bragging rights here for the 7th position and a few more points as well. On board with Sven Labe as we head down to Blanchmont for the final time for these drivers. Lap 27 of 27, and I think it's just too much of a gap.
And way too far out for the Sen, confident-wise. If you send it here, you're not finishing.
David Climber will finish 7th. Sven Labe will finish 8th. And 9th position overall will be your amateur race winner. The number 008 out of Arizona, the Copper State, goes to victory lane in amateur competition, Chris Schultheis. McLeod and Payne battling for 11th on the racetrack. McLeod will take it. He will go 3rd in class behind Oberlo. Sarnquist will be the final car on the lead lap after a slew of late pit stops really handicapped a lot of the midfield. Sarnquist comes home 13th, matching his car number. All while Terry Crouch on the cool down lap is able to wrap this one up rather nicely. Not exactly a surprise, especially with the prestige from TLDR Simsport. You mentioned they've been around for a long time. They've got a lot of really strong members in their fold, like Sam Holt, Elliot Hellier. Neither one of them here today, but Terry Crouch, Randall White, they took care of business.
Team 1-2. Car was hooked up. The driver was definitely right on it from the get-go. Crouch absolutely decimated the field. At least 2 seconds quicker much of the race.
The best lap for Terry Crouch on the lap. Well, actually, I can't see the lap it was on, but the best lap is still 0.6 ahead of his teammate, let alone the rest of the field. So he had something figured out. It was a 2:11.219 as he enters the pit lane. No burnout for him, it looks like. Just the kind of Mark Martin strategy to celebrating the win. Just a nice cool down lap into the pit lane, and he gets to crack open a cold one potentially as he celebrates. Job well done. 27 laps led out of 27 laps run. That said, 25 cars opened up this season. Let's go back and take a look at our unofficial race results this evening from Circuit de Spa. On top, car 59, back to victory lane, Terry Crouch by 18.4 seconds over Randall White. Aldous Puticlis, 33 seconds back. Andrus Slisons in the 4th spot, 55 seconds back. And those numbers are staggering for the top 5. Even David Tamaro, 59, nearly 1 minute behind Terry Crouch over the course of a 1-hour race. That is a huge, huge number. Pete Snake, David Clymer, Sven Labe, they round out your pro top competitors in your top 8 positions. But then Chris Schultheis and Dustin Obelo, they had a short battle before Obelo made the mistake in Puan, and Schultheis went through to victory in amateur class.
On the McLeod, who had a strong race until that stack up amongst the AM leaders, seen in the final stage before the final pit stops. David Payne finished in 12th as a pro driver. The last on the lead lap was Sarnquist. He was in the conversation for the AM win as well before looping it around, heading through La Source in the final sectors. Then it's Brendan Carl in 14th and Dan Clark finishing 15th. Batista Senetrelli finishing 17th despite having to take the drive-through penalty. Then you have Christian Clark, significant damage to end at 18th. Phil Scrudden, what could have been, he was the AM leader after some of the attrition built up, finishing 19th, 2 laps down. Sean Cole manages to finish 20th despite being 2 laps down after the early incident.
Finishing 21st position, your back 5 drivers begin with Kenny Stepp in the 66 car, 5 laps down, but got back on track, picked up a lot of spots. Johnny Alford there in 22nd, James Dowling 23rd, and I saw a comment out in the chat, by the way, asking about Auction Zoller rather. Unfortunately, 24th position out very early in this race, 15 laps down ahead of Mike Nickham, who never did rejoin the race after his very early issue, I believe, with Auction Zoller. They had a running in, if you will, in Savalo, and just either one never able to really regain from that. A lot of damage to each car, and very far out of this race. They finished in the bottom 2 positions this afternoon. Now, driver interviews. Drivers, if you're out there listening, I don't see any of you in Discord yet. By all means, feel free to connect into the Pit Stop TV Discord channel. I just put the link. I'm sorry. And see, this is where I'll be honest, this is kind of a breaking of the fourth wall. I see a lot of them in the green room over in the League channel. So give us a moment to see if we can coordinate. I'll be honest with you, Justin. I know you cover a lot of races, a lot of different leagues. I do the same, and there's a kind of a back and forth sometimes of where we broadcast from the Pit Stop TV Discord. Sometimes we broadcast from the League Discord. I think these guys were expecting us to be over in the League Discord, so we're going to sort that out real quick. Looks like Chris Schultheis at least has joined, and he goes, it looks like, well, wins, of course, in amateur. Let's bring him in at least while we sort everything else out. Chris Schultheis with the win in amateur. Car 008 right back to victory lane, I think, where it belongs. And it's been a while since we've seen you on top of the class, but Chris, amazing performance, but you had to outlast some guys and just kind of play the attrition. How did you put yourself in P1?
Just by staying safe, staying on the track for the most part. I don't think I made any big mistakes, and that's what it all came down to at the last lap.
You go on by Dustin Obelo in the final moments. Just a small issue in Puhan. It seems like all of you guys were battling the car all race long. This is an older car. It's still a little bit twitchy. What was it like just trying to keep the car going in a straight line?
It was pretty good. I think the downside is some of the top guys had a lot more top speed on the straightaways, and maybe we're also able to handle the car at the same time through the infields and whatnot, and that's what made a big difference between the guys up front and us.
Of course, this is an open setup series. How aggressive do you have to be on the setup to try and get the most speed out of the car?
Apparently quite a bit, at least from the very small tinkering I've done. But I'm not too experienced, so I think the top guys also, that shows.
Well, Chris Schultheis goes to victory lane tonight from, or I guess this afternoon rather, from the amateur class. Chris, congratulations, and I think it's going to be a real fun battle between you and guys like Dustin Oberlo, Callum McLeod, and everybody else towards the top of the order. Really fun racing all day long.
Yeah, thanks to the Simpit, thanks to GSI, thanks to you guys for putting on the show, so that we can all watch it afterwards as well. And of course, everyone I was racing with. It was a great race with everyone involved.
Well, Chris, once again, congratulations. Hopefully we're talking to you a lot more this season. 9 races to go. Got to put that 008 on podium for the rest of them.
Yeah, I've set the bar high. Let's keep it going.
There you go, Chris Schultheis from the 9th position overall victory lane, though, for amateur, ahead of the next guy, Dustin Oberlo in car 88. And Justin, it looked like he had it wrapped up for so long today. Unfortunately, comes home one spot short.
It's the after the slide from the race lead. He ends up sliding into second position here. Dustin, how heartbreaking was that situation? Going through Pujon, coming out of the corner exit, after the curbing, around it goes.
I was thinking about my tires, and I guess I was thinking too hard, and I just willed it into existence. Happy I saved it, though. Just locked up the brakes, and the car kind of just slid into the right position, so I wasn't completely out. But, yeah, it did kind of suck first race out. I'll get him next time.
Was about to say, the M class in particular seen a lot of intrigue today, a lot of ups and downs. You went up a lot of spots. How difficult was it to make your way through the field and claw your way forward while, well, the attrition happened to pop up around you?
Yeah, definitely a few Code Brown moments throughout the start of the race there. Honestly, just luck. I try to keep my nose out of stuff, and it paid off, so it was pretty good.
How would you describe the feel of these types of cars compared to some of the others you've raced over your iRacing career?
Yeah, I definitely like these cars a lot. They're heavily reliant on downforce. Not quite as much as like an F3 car or an F1 car, but they're super fun cars to drive. They're really planted. They tell you what's going on, through the wheel quite nicely. So definitely like this car a lot. Too bad that it's not in the regular series anymore.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for the time, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks.
That's Dustin Oberlo, finishing second in the M class today.
Meanwhile, way out front, in fact, 1 minute, 40 seconds in front of Dustin Oberlo, car 59, right back on top of the series, and that's got to be a good feeling for somebody who had so much bad luck last season, Terry Crouch. Today, 27 laps led, 27 laps run, perfect for car 59.
Yeah, it's a good way to start it. I really wasn't happy with how I ran last season, off and on, so I didn't put in the work I needed to, so I knew this week I was going to log some laps and make sure that I did everything I could to give myself the best success. So good start. We'll see how it goes from here.
And now you're no stranger to this car. You're maybe even the reason we're running this car this season. It's a fantastic piece of machinery, but a little bit old in terms of sim racing. Why are we racing this car this season, and why are you so comfortable in it?
Well, we put up 3 cars in the vote and let everybody vote on which one. And of course, I was championing this car. I feel, especially more than the SR10, this car teaches you more about car balance and using the inputs to get the car to rotate. You can use throttle. It will tell you exactly what you did wrong or right. Late tires, new tires. It's the most communicative car on the service for my money. And I spent some time coaching guys this week. Tamira and some other guys showed up, so that was good. But I think it teaches you so much about going fast.
And how about this deal with tires on pit stops or not? And it looked like you and your teammate Randall White opted for tires in the first stop, no tires in the second stop. But the difference between tires and no tires seems to be only about a second, if not less potentially, depending on how much fuel you have to put in the car. doesn't seem like there's a big difference in the pits, but I mean, there is a big difference on the racetrack. Why did you guys not opt for tires a second time?
Well, that's exactly it. I found that out this morning. I wasn't going to change tires, but I was slipping and sliding, and I cost myself some time in the second, third stint. And when I tested it, I saw it was 19 out of the box with just fuel and 20 out of the box with tires, and that way it's not slipping around. But on the last stint, when you only need 18 liters instead of 24, then you're going to lose a lot of time. So I'll change them if it's full. You just kind of make the call. And whether this track is so susceptible to grip loss. So I wanted grip when I could have it, and then save them in that second stint. So for the third one, I could just cruise.
There you go, Terry Crouch. I could ask you questions all day long, but I have a feeling we're going to be talking to a whole lot this season, so I'll save those questions for later in the season. A big win for you to open up round number 1 of 10. Congratulations. I'm sure we'll talk to you a whole lot more over the course of the next 9 rounds.
Yeah, here's hoping. I think guys will sort it out. They'll figure it out. We're just kind of running iRacing default setups, and I found out if you throw the lower downforce on it and just change the gear stack, the thing was a rocket ship. So thanks to Randall, he goes, have you tried it in this? He was doing about a second faster than me. So thanks to him, because I don't have any setups. We're just running iRacing default, see how it goes each week. But guys will figure it out. They'll put in the time, and it'll be good.
There you go. Now everybody knows what Terry Crouch is running this week. We'll see how it changes next week at Zandvoort. Terry, congratulations. I can't wait to see what you guys can do in the Netherlands.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And speaking of him and his teammate, Randall White, P2 for the 84 car. Justin, a stellar run for both of these guys.
Randall White, in particular, very consistent as well to his mark. Not in the same stratosphere at times, it seemed, to Terry Crouch. Able to make it a team 1-2. Randall, dominant performance for your respective grouping as a whole for TLDR Sim Sports. What was going through your mind throughout the race today in the mixture of trying to keep up with Terry?
Oh, I couldn't keep up with Terry. I wish I could. He was hitting like the 211s every lap. I couldn't quite do that. I was really focused on just trying to build a gap on third. And once I did that, I was just kind of holding my spot. It wasn't a very exciting race, but our setup we were using was pretty challenging to drive, so that kept it interesting.
How was it challenging?
It was not a lot of downforce on the car, so it was kind of sketchy. Some of the braking zones could be kind of tough going into some of the slow corners, but I put a lot of practice in, so I kind of got used to it, and that was kind of what we did. Worked out pretty good this week. I don't think that same strategy is going to work. Just looking at the calendar, I don't think all these other tracks are going to have that same kind of advantage. I think things will come back together.
So, you mentioned the strategy is not expected to be the same. How's the game plan in turn looking then for Zandvoort, in your opinion?
Zandvoort, I think we're going to need probably put some more downforce on the car. I haven't raced there in a while, but I remember it being pretty twisty track. It's going to probably be a really good track on this car. I don't have a lot of experience in this radical, but it is a lot of fun, and it's hard to describe how it, to me anyways, how this thing drives, but it's kind of a in between, like a open wheel car and a GT car. It's really sensitive to setup, real sensitive to track temp. At least this week at Spa, in my experience. So Zandvoort is going to be a pretty big challenge for me, but put the work in. We'll see what we can do next week.
And that's Randall White coming up with second place. Congratulations on the run, Randall.
All right, thanks, guys.
Randall White, P2 on the day. I think we'll have to watch for car 84 to bring the fight to his teammate Terry Crouch all season long. It seems like they might be the best two in the field, but of course we only saw a sample size. We're going to see a lot more drivers this season. We were talking about it, you and I, before this broadcast, Justin. There are so many other drivers that didn't make it in the field today that we think are going to play a big role in this season, and even on some of the tighter circuits, we're going to see guys like Oldis Putelis, Andros Slizens, even David Tamara, I think, be much more involved in that battle up front. It just seemed like from the get-go, TLDR SimSport has something on these guys, but that gap is likely going to narrow.
Yeah, the talent level is very high. It's, I think, as mentioned, focal point of seeing what you can learn, what you can adjust as the season goes on, finding that ability to be able to close up that gap between yourself and Terry Crouch, in particular seeing how things play out at different facilities, because this track may have fit one style for certain drivers. It might go a different way with a track like Zandvoort, which, mind you, is technically the legacy version, you could say, compared to the Real World Edition.
Yeah, I look across the schedule, and we've got about half Formula One circuits. Of course, Spa today, Zandvoort next week, even though it's the, like you say, pretty much legacy version at this point. It does not have the repave and banked corners, at least not banked as highly as we do now in real life. Spain, of course, is a Formula One track. Okayama is a former Formula One track, but for this point, we won't count it. So then you count Suzuka in Brazil, and then you've got a bunch of, you got 3 IMSA courses, Long Beach, Canada, and Elkhart Lake, all in a row. At the back end of the schedule, you got Bathurst in there, which is its own enigma of its own in round 4. A very diverse schedule, especially when you look at Spa being an older scan here on the sim, Zandvoort being a very old scan on the sim. Spain is pretty new. In fact, Spain we're racing under the lights. I know there isn't big old stadium lights like you see at some of the Middle Eastern Formula One circuits, but we do have enough lights at Spain to go racing in the dark. And I think that's my favorite round of the season just for that reason. So keep that in mind. We're racing in the dark at Spain. Of course, these cars have lights, so it works out just enough. Bathurst is, again, an older track. Okayama, an older track. Suzuka, a very old scan here on the sim. We're waiting on that repave at some point soon. Or I guess rescan, if you will. But then Long Beach is very new. Canada's very old. Elkhart Lake, Road America has been remastered recently, and Brazil is kind of in between. A whole lot of variables over the course of the season. You got some hotter climates, some cooler climates. We're going to see a lot of storylines, I think, over the course of this season, just because of the schedule alone, Justin. And I'm excited. Like I said, I think Spain is my favorite round just for the fact that it's at night. Long Beach and Brazil, they also stand out to me. What say you?
Well, I always love the racing at Road America because National Park of Speed, it's a very pristine racetrack. So I think that's one of the ones I put a star next to. I have to also put a star, of course, next to Spain, because here's the thing. You know how rare the combination is of racing at nighttime at Barcelona is? It's very rare. It's not going to be easy, to put it lightly, for those who haven't put it into practice to race under the lights, knowing that most of the time there, especially in the official circumstances, you usually race in the daytime there.
Yeah, it's going to be a big-time variable, and things look different even from morning to afternoon into evening, even when the sun is up. When the shadows are different, your visual cues are different, your braking zone, your braking markers, and everything else changes just a little bit. So to now put these drivers under the lights, not only just a different time of day, so the shadows are different. Well, there are no shadows. It's just lights on the racetrack and only in a few spots. So using what they can see from their headlights, it's going to look completely different visual cues. It's going to be a challenge for those guys, and of course, it's going to be a lot cooler then. You're not going to have the sun to warm the track. It's just going to be a slew of different challenges for round number 3, and I'm excited. Very, very excited. Round 3, under the lights at Spain. That's just a weird combo, but the paddock's all lit up. There's lights around the racetrack. I'm literally, genuinely hyped. Before we go, though, I do want to mention that, of course, Gomez Industries is a big partner of this Simpit Road Racing Series. In this case, whether you're a seasoned professional or a newcomer to the world of sim racing, you deserve the finest equipment that meets your needs. And at GSI, they are committed to providing just that, the ultimate sim racing experience. Check out GSI, Gomez Sim Industries. You can literally just type into google.com, Gomez Sim Industries, and you will find information. You can go to the website and just explore everything they have to offer. A lot of different products on the website that can help, again, any kind of sim racer, no matter what step you're at along in your sim racing career. Gomez Sim Industries is there for you. Before we go, some upcoming broadcasts here on the channel. Justin, look at them here. The next 3, it's kind of a light schedule actually next week. Monday, we have racing with the iRacing Late Model Tour from the Bull Ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and then we're off all the way until the Simpit returns next week at Circuit Zandvoort. Again, an older circuit, but round number 2 is going to be a whole lot of fun in the Netherlands. That's an underused circuit as well. One that I think I've commentated once in my sim racing broadcasting career. We don't go there very often. I'm excited for April 2nd.
It'll be intriguing to say the very least, but you can catch all that once more through social media through Facebook at PitStopTV, through Twitter at PitStopTV_, through Twitch at Pit_Stop_TV, through YouTube at PitStopTV1, but also don't forget about Instagram at Pit_Stop_TV to be able to keep along with Pit Stop TV as well on social media. Should be some fun action coming up, especially next week for this series.
That will do it this evening from Virtual Spa. Justin, thanks so much for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. I've followed along with your times on social media for sim racing broadcasting over the years. I've seen your successes over the last few years working with iRacing, all these different channels. It's a pleasure to finally have you with Pit Stop TV, hopefully for many more shows. It's been genuinely an honor to have you along on the call, and well, that is how we open things up for race number 1 of a brand new season with the Simpit Road Racing Series, the Radical Series now with these cars. Kind of a throwback just with the car on a lot of throwback circuits this season. It's been exciting. Once again, Justin, just thanks for being here today.
Thank you once again for the opportunity. It's been an exciting start to the season for Simpit Radical Series competition. I can't wait to see how the drivers fare next time out.
That will do it for us this afternoon, evening, morning, night, wherever you're watching from, whatever time it may be. Once again, thanks for joining us here at Pit Stop TV. Thanks to those that make it happen for us in audio, ATVO, Whiplash Media, SimCams, OBS, and iRacing.com. That will do it. Hopefully you join us on Monday evening, tomorrow night, March 27th, for the continuation round 3 of 12 for the iRacing Late Model Tour brought to you by Elite Performance Industries. We'll see you there.